Hello students, welcome to EduRev. In the last video we discussed the Frederick Sorrow's vision and the French Revolution. Now let's unfold the making of nationalism in Europe. Under this topic we are going to study the following: the aristocracy and the new middle class, what did liberal nationalism stand for, a new conservatism after 1815, and the revolutionaries. If you look at the map of mid-18th century Europe, you will find that there were no nation states as you know them today. What we know today as Germany, Italy and Switzerland were divided into kingdoms, duchies and cantons whose rulers had their autonomous territories. Let's see what are nation states first. So, people in nation states share common language, common culture and common identity, but in the mid-18th century there was no concept of nation state. If we compare the no nation states from today, we will find that after mid-18th century, idea of nation states emerged, and today we have so many examples like Germany, France, Hungary and India. Now let's see how this idea of nation states emerged. So if we talk about Habsburg Empire, people having different ideas, culture, tradition and language lived there, and somehow the idea of nation states emerged from there only. Let's see how. The aristocracy and the new middle class. Socially and politically, a landed aristocracy was a dominant class on the continent. The members of this class were united by a common way of life that cut across regional divisions. They owned estates in the countryside and also townhouses. They spoke French for purposes of diplomacy and in high society. Their families were often connected by ties of marriage. This powerful aristocracy was, however, numerically a small group. The majority of the population was made up of the peasantry. They are the poor people of the society. They didn't have much land and some were even landless. They were in majority. They were not powerful. Industrialization began in England in the second half of the 18th century. In its wake, new social groups came into being: a working class population and middle classes made of industrialists, businessmen and professionals. They were neither very poor nor very rich. They were educated. Now let's see, what did liberal nationalism stand for? Ideas of national unity in early 19th century Europe were closely allied to the ideology of liberalism. For the new middle classes, liberalism stood for freedom of the individual and equality of all before the law. Politically, it emphasized the concept of government by consent. Since the French Revolution, liberalism had stood the end of autocracy and clerical privileges, a constitution and representative government through parliament. 19th century liberals also stressed the inviolability of private property. Yet, equality before the law did not necessarily stand for universal suffrage, which means right to vote. You will recall that in revolutionary France, which marked the first political experiment in liberal democracy, the right to vote to get elected was granted exclusively to the property-owning men. Men without property and all the women were excluded from political rights. Middle class was not supporting those men who didn't have property, and women fought suffrage. Throughout the 19th and the earlier 20th centuries, women and non-propertied men organized opposition movements demanding equal political rights. Let us take the example of the German-speaking regions in the first half of the 19th century. Napoleon's administrative measures had created out of 10 countless small principalities a confederation of 39 states. Each of these possessed its own currency and weights and measures. A merchant traveling in 1833 from Hamburg to Nuremberg to sell his goods would have had to pass through 11 custom barriers and pay a customs duty of 5% at each of them. Duties were often levied according to the weight or measurement of the goods. As each region had its own system of weights and measures, this involved time-consuming calculation. Such conditions were viewed as obstacles to economic exchange and growth by the new commercial classes, who argued for the creation of a unified economic territory, allowing the unhindered movements of goods, people, and capital. In 1834, a customs union or Zollverein was formed at the initiative of Prussia and joined by most of the German states. The union abolished tariff barriers and reduced the number of currencies from over 30 to 2. The creation of a network of railways further stimulated mobility, harnessing economic interest to national unification. Now let's discuss a new conservatism after 1815. Following the defeat of Napoleon in 1815, European governments were driven by the spirit of conservatism. Conservatives believed in monarchy, the church, social hierarchies, property, and the family that should be preserved. Let's understand the conservatism first. A political philosophy that stressed the importance of tradition, established institutions and customs, and preferred gradual development to quick change. Most conservatives, however, did not propose a return to the society of pre-revolutionary days. Rather, they realized from the changes initiated by Napoleon that modernization could in fact strengthen traditional institutions like the monarchy. It could make state power more effective and strong. A modern army, an efficient bureaucracy, a dynamic economy, the abolition of feudalism and serfdom could strengthen the autocratic monarchies of Europe. In 1815, representatives of the European powers, Britain, Russia, Prussia, and Austria, who had collectively defeated Napoleon, met at Vienna to draw up a settlement for Europe. The Congress was hosted by the Austrian Chancellor, Duke Metternich. The delegates drew up the Treaty of Vienna of 1815 with the object of undoing most of the changes that had come about in Europe during the Napoleonic Wars. The Bourbon dynasty, which had been deposed during the French Revolution, was restored to power, and France lost the territories it had annexed under Napoleon. A series of states were set up on the boundaries of France to prevent French expansion in future. Prussia was given important new territories on its western frontiers, while Austria was given control of northern Italy. But the German Confederation of 39 states that had been set up by Napoleon was left untouched. The main intention was to restore the monarchies that had been overthrown by Napoleon and create a new conservative order in Europe. Now let's discuss the effect of revolutionaries. During the years following 1815, a fear of repression drove many liberal nationalists underground. Secret societies sprang up in many European states to train revolutionaries and spread their ideas. To be revolutionary at this time meant a commitment to oppose monarchical forms that had been established after the Vienna Congress and to fight for liberty and freedom. Most of these revolutionaries also saw the creation of nation-states as a necessary part of the struggle for freedom. One such individual was the Italian revolutionary Giuseppe Mazzini. Born in Genoa in 1807, he became a member of the secret society of Carbonari. As a young man of 24, he was sent into exile in 1831 for attempting a revolution in Liguria. He subsequently founded two more underground societies, first Young Italy in Marseilles and Young Europe in Bern, whose members were like-minded young men from Poland, France, Italy, and the German states. Mazzini believed that God had intended nations to be natural units of mankind, so Italy could not continue to be a patchwork of small states and kingdoms. It had to be forged into a single unified republic within a wider alliance of nations. This unification alone could be the basis of the Italian liberty. Following his model, secret societies were set up in Germany, France, Switzerland, and Poland. Mazzini's relentless opposition to monarchy and his visions of democratic republics frightened the conservatives. Metternich described him as the most dangerous enemy of our social order. So that's all for today. In the next video, we will start from the age of revolution. You can revise all that we have studied from the documents and videos present on the EduRev app and practice the tests from the same. You can unlock all the logged videos, docs, and tests with EduRev Infinity Plan and ace your exams at less than 80 rupees per month. Thank you.